Her fingers trembled as she dialed 911, ducked behind the rusted-out dumpster behind the liquor store on South Main. Blood soaked through her jeans, not hers. David had shielded her. Again. Gunshots still echoed in her ears, even though the street had gone dead silent. Sirens were distant, too distant. "Ma'am, are you safe?" The dispatcher's voice crackled through the phone. "No," she whispered. "They're still looking for me." She dropped the phone. 2 men had stepped out of a black Escalade 10 minutes ago, calm like they owned the night. Tattoos up their necks, one with a scar that split his lip permanently open. They didn't say a word, just walked straight toward her like they knew who she was. But David was faster. 3 shots before they blinked. 2 men on the ground. She thought it was over. But then another car pulled up. That's when he told her to run. "I'll find you," he'd said. Now, crouched in garbage stink and Vegas heat, Emily pressed her back to the dumpster and tried not to sob. The pavement radiated warmth even after the sun had set. Typical Nevada. This wasn't supposed to happen. She'd met David at a coffee shop downtown 2 years ago. Tall, quiet, always wore that leather jacket even in the dead of summer. He read thick books. She thought he was a librarian. She never asked why he always faced the door. Never asked about the scars on his ribs or the way he disappeared for days. Not until tonight when the cartel found them. A screech of tires, Emily's body seized up. Someone was getting out of a car on the other side of the alley. She slid down, heart pounding. She could smell motor oil and cinnamon gum. Footsteps, slow, deliberate. Then, Emily. She knew that voice. David. He was limping, shirt dark with blood, eyes scanning. She stood. "You came back," she said, voice cracking. "I told you. Always." Behind him, headlights lit the alley. Another car. "Run," he said again, voice hard now. "Don't stop." She hesitated. He looked her in the eyes, not the man she'd fallen for, not the book-reading quiet type. This was someone else, someone dangerous. Then he turned to face the car, raised his pistol with calm precision and walked straight toward the lights. Emily ran. She didn't look back. But in the air above the city's grime and buzz, a truth was forming. David wasn't protecting her. He was finishing something. The motel smelled like bleach and despair. 2 beds, flickering light, and a vending machine that coughed up warm water bottles. Emily hadn't stopped shaking since she got there. She'd paid in cash. Fake name. Just like David taught her, back when it was all just a game. She sat on the edge of the bed trying to piece the night together. Her phone was dead, or maybe she'd thrown it in a trash can. She couldn't remember. The TV buzzed in the background. Some news anchor was talking about a double shooting downtown. No names, no faces, just more static. Emily stared at her reflection in the cracked mirror. What the hell was going on? She'd known David had secrets, of course she had, but secrets like ex-wives or old debts, not assassins in Escalades, not full-blown execution-style shootouts in alleys, and definitely not the way he moved when he shot them. No panic, no hesitation. He hadn't just fought back. He'd neutralized them, like he'd done it before, many times. She pressed a towel to her thigh where shrapnel had grazed her. Nothing serious, not compared to what she saw David take. And yet, he kept going. She looked down at her hands. They were dirty, bruised, shaking. There was a knock. Soft. 3 taps. A pause, then 2 more. The code. She rushed to the door and opened it a crack. David stood there, pale, soaked in blood, but alive. "Let me in." She locked the door behind him. He collapsed on the nearest bed, breathing hard. She ran to him. "Jesus, you're bleeding." "Not mine," he muttered. "Well, not most of it." He pulled up his shirt. A shallow stab wound across his abdomen. Emily grabbed the motel's first aid kit and started cleaning him up. "What is this, David?" she asked finally. He didn't answer. "Who were those men? Why did they come after me?" Still nothing. "You killed them," she said, barely whispering, without blinking. Finally, he met her eyes. "Because blinking gets you killed." Emily sat back. "You said you were a translator. that you used to work for the State Department. I did, she scoffed. I also killed people for them, he added quietly. The room went still. You're saying you were... I was the guy they sent when they didn't want questions, a ghost. He looked away. Until I walked away. Emily's mind spun. And now? They found me. I think I know why. She leaned in. Why? David's jaw clenched. Because of what I took with me when I left, and now they think you know something. Emily froze. I don't, she said quickly. They don't care, he replied. Your leverage. She felt like the walls were closing in. So what now? David's eyes went cold. Now I go back into the dark, but this time I'm dragging them all into the light with me. 3 hours later, they were 30 miles outside Vegas, barreling down a dusty service road in David's backup car, a beat-up '96 Impala with a modified trunk and no plates. The sun was just starting to rise, throwing an orange hue over the desert scrub. Emily kept glancing in the mirror, heart hammering like they were being chased, even though the road was empty. David hadn't said much since they left the motel. He drove with both hands on the wheel, jaw tight, eyes scanning constantly. Emily didn't recognize this version of him, or maybe this was the real version all along. You going to tell me where we're going? She asked, breaking the silence. He didn't take his eyes off the road. Somewhere I swore I'd never go again. Helpful. A faded green sign flashed by. Paramp, 6 miles. David, she pressed, if I'm in danger, I deserve to know why. He exhaled. There's a lockbox in a storage unit I rented under a false identity years ago. It has insurance. Insurance? Names, dates, photos, financial records, stuff the cartel and some people in DC would kill to keep buried. Emily turned toward him. And you just kept that? I thought if I ever disappeared, someone might need to know the truth. He looked at her, just for a second. Didn't expect you to be that someone. So what, you're going to expose them? David didn't answer, but the look in his eyes was all the confirmation she needed. 20 minutes later, they pulled into a dusty, near-empty storage facility with cracked asphalt and a single camera hanging by a wire. David typed in a code at the gate. It buzzed, then opened slowly. Follow me, he said. They walked past rows of units until he stopped at number 422. He used a small crowbar to crack open the lock. Inside was mostly dust and a single army duffel bag. David knelt, unzipped it, and pulled out a steel box with a biometric scanner. He pressed his thumb to it. A green light blinked. Still works, he muttered. Inside were manila folders, flash drives, and several photos paper-clipped together. Emily reached for one and stopped cold. It was a picture of a man, clean-shaven, mid-40s, smiling next to a young boy. The man had the same scar on his lip as the thug who'd tried to grab her outside the liquor store. Wait, she whispered. That's one of the guys from the alley. David took the photo, nodded. His name's Hector Duran, mid-level enforcer. Cartel uses him for cleanup jobs. He paused. And the man in the photo with him? Emily squinted. I don't know. David's voice turned flat. That's a sitting congressman, House Intelligence Committee. Emily's breath caught. They're not just drug runners, David said. They're part of something much bigger. And now because of me, they think you're a loose end. They didn't sleep. After scanning and encrypting every file in the lockbox, David stashed the originals in a fireproof envelope and buried them beneath a loose floorboard in the storage unit. Emily watched in silence, stomach knotted, the weight of it all pressing down on her like Nevada heat. You think they'll stop? She asked finally. David looked up. Not until they're sure we're both dead. The way he said it, calm, certain, made her shiver. They got back in the car and drove aimlessly for hours, avoiding freeways, skipping gas stations with cameras. David had stubble now, his wounds bandaged under a clean shirt. Emily changed into clothes they bought at a truck stop. Hoodie, jeans, sunglasses. She barely recognized herself in the mirror anymore. At a rundown diner in Tonopah, they slid into a booth near the back. The waitress gave them a once-over and poured 2 coffees without asking. David stirred his, then reached into his pocket and slid Emily a small flash drive. "What's this?" "A copy," he said, "of everything in the lockbox." She frowned. "Why are you giving it to me?" "In case I don't make it." Her hand froze midair. "Don't say that." "I'm being realistic." She pushed it back toward him. "Then be realistic and don't go alone." He didn't respond right away. Instead, he glanced at the dusty window, watching cars crawl by on the highway. "I used to believe I could disappear," he said quietly. "Do one bad thing for the right reasons, then walk away. Build something good with someone who didn't ask questions." Emily stared at him. "I didn't ask because I trusted you." "I know. You kept me in the dark. To protect you." She leaned forward. "That's not protection. That's control." Silence stretched between them. The coffee steamed. The waitress refilled a nearby table's mugs. Then David said, "There's one more person I need to see, someone who can help us get this story out." Emily narrowed her eyes. "Who?" "An old contact. Investigative journalist. Name's Marcus Reed. We worked together once in Caracas. He's got reach, and he's not afraid to bleed for the truth." She folded her arms. "And what's the catch? He hates my guts." David tossed a 20 on the table and stood. "He lives in LA. If we can get to him, maybe we can get ahead of this." Emily followed him out. The sky was starting to darken again, painted in streaks of red and violet. Another night was coming, and with it more danger. Before getting into the car, David looked at her one last time. "I don't expect you to forgive me," he said, "but I need you to trust me one more time." Emily didn't answer right away. Then, quietly, "You don't get to die on me. Not now. Not like this." He nodded once, and they drove west toward LA, toward whatever was waiting. Los Angeles was a neon blur by the time they hit the city limits, the lights bleeding through the windshield, casting sharp shadows across David's face. He hadn't said much in the last 100 miles, just tightened his grip on the wheel every time they passed a black SUV or saw a cop parked off an exit ramp. Emily leaned her head against the glass, watching the skyline rise like teeth out of the smog. She'd been here twice before, once for a girls' weekend and once for a wedding. Now, she was here because people wanted her dead. "Where are we meeting him?" she asked. David didn't look at her. "Echo Park. He has a safe house in the hills, off-grid, unlisted." She raised a brow. "So of course he does." They wound through side streets until they reached a narrow driveway hidden behind an overgrown fence. At the top was a 2-story Craftsman, windows blacked out, camera mounted above the porch. David didn't knock. He pressed a code into a keypad behind the mailbox. The door clicked open. Inside, it smelled like old books and coffee. Walls lined with filing cabinets, maps, photographs. A laptop glowed faintly in the corner. And then a voice. Hell must have frozen over. Emily turned. A man in his 50s stood in the hallway, barefoot, wearing a faded Ramones t-shirt. His beard was salt and pepper, and his eyes sharp enough to cut glass. "Hello, Marcus," David said. Marcus crossed his arms. "If I'd known it was you, I'd have set the place on fire." Emily stepped forward. "We didn't come here for nostalgia." Marcus's gaze shifted to her, calculating. "You're the girl." "She's more than that," David said. Marcus smirked. "She'd have to be, to still be standing next to you." David handed him the flash drive. "This has everything," he said. "Trafficking routes, money trails, political names, all tied to Duran and his people, and a congressman who helped them launder it." Marcus whistled low. "Jesus, how long you been sitting on this?" "Too long." Marcus plugged the drive in, scanned a few files, then stopped cold. "You're not just naming names, you're going to burn it all down." David nodded. "And I need you to make sure it stays lit." Marcus looked at him. "You know they'll come for me too." David's voice dropped. "They already will. Might as well give them a reason." Emily stepped closer. "If we do this, there's no safe, no later, no going back." Marcus sighed. "Safe is a myth, but truth has teeth." He turned to his laptop, fingers already flying. "I'll start prepping the release. It goes wide in 24 hours, unless you call me off." David looked at Emily. "We're not calling it off." Marcus nodded. "Then you'd better disappear, because once this hits, there's no putting the lid back on." Outside, sirens wailed faintly in the distance. The countdown had begun. They left Marcus's place before dawn. No goodbyes, no second guesses. Just one shared look between the two men, heavy with history, regret, and something like respect. Emily climbed into the car without a word. The streets were still mostly dark, but LA never truly slept. Headlights flickered, late-night radios buzzed, and somewhere in the hills the city exhaled, waiting for the match to drop. David drove with purpose now. Not like a man on the run, but like someone heading towards something. "What happens after it goes live?" Emily asked, breaking the silence. "They'll come after us harder," he said. "They'll lose everything if this gets traction. Their money, their leverage, their protection. So we keep running." David shook his head. "We changed the game." They drove to a warehouse in Vernon, industrial, forgotten, the kind of place where people didn't ask questions. Inside, David unlocked a steel cabinet behind a stack of pallets. Inside, burner phones, license plates, bundles of cash, 2 sets of passports. Emily stared at them. "You had an escape plan." "I always had several," he said. She looked at him, really looked. "How long have you been planning this?" David didn't answer. Instead, he handed her a passport. Different name, picture taken months ago. She flipped through it like it belonged to someone else. "You really think we'll get out?" she asked. "Only if Marcus lives long enough to publish." He tossed her a burner phone. "Set to ping 1 tower and then go dead. If you ever need to disappear without me, that's how." Emily caught it, held it in both hands. "Stop talking like you're not coming with me." David paused, then reached into the cabinet and pulled out a black envelope. Inside, a small vial sealed tight. "What is that?" "Insurance," he said. "Proof of the congressman's DNA at a site connected to Duran." Emily blinked. "How you took his DNA? I told you. I used to do things for the government they don't talk about." She swallowed hard. "Jesus, David." He looked at her, eyes steady. "You need to understand. This doesn't end with a story online. These people operate in silence, darkness. We're dragging them out into the sun." Her phone buzzed, the burner Marcus gave her. One message, a link. David opened it. A headline flashed across the screen. "Leaked files connect Congressman Alan Troy to Mexican cartel. Money laundering, human trafficking, and murder alleged." Below, photos, documents, wire transfers, all of it. The story was live. David exhaled. Now, the real storm starts. Emily looked out the window. "So what do we do?" He started the car. "We vanish." For now. Sirens screamed a little closer this time. Helicopters were rising over the city. The phones would start ringing in every office that had once believed itself untouchable. The fuse was lit, and they were already gone. 3 weeks later, they were ghosts. In a sleepy border town in Arizona, Emily sipped weak diner coffee, while David read the newspaper in Spanish, the only copy the place had. The front page was old news now. Congressman Troy resigns amid scandal. Small font, big consequences. The bigger headlines had already cycled out. The FBI raids, the congressional hearings, the mysterious disappearance of Hector Duran. Marcus's story had gone viral, then global. Several people were arrested. A few were found dead in their homes. Some just vanished, but the names stayed published. Unforgettable. David folded the paper, set it down. "He did it," Emily nodded. "And we survived. For now." They were living in a rented trailer behind a gas station. David worked nights at a garage under a different name. Emily cleaned rooms at a roadside motel. Simple jobs, cash, untraceable. They didn't talk much about Vegas, or the men in the alley, or the lockbox, but they both kept a bag packed. Always. "You ever think about going back?" she asked him one night, lying beside him in the dark. "Back where?" "Anywhere that feels normal." He turned to her, his voice low. Normal doesn't want people like me. Emily was quiet for a moment. I still want something real, she said. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. This is real. It's not clean, and it's not easy, but it's us. A beat passed. Then she asked, "Do you think they're still looking?" David hesitated. They always look, but we made a mess too big to clean up. Sometimes the only way to survive power is to humiliate it. Emily smiled faintly. Spoken like someone who used to kill people for the government. He smirked. And now makes a mean oil change for 10 an hour. Outside, a dog barked somewhere in the distance. The desert wind kicked dust up against the windows. Life kept moving even here, even after everything. Emily rolled over, facing him. I don't care where we are as long as I know who I'm waking up next to. David didn't answer. He just wrapped his arm around her, held her close, and for the first time in weeks, she let her eyes close without fear. Tomorrow might bring a new face asking the wrong questions. A black SUV parked too long. A news report that dredged up the past. But tonight, there was quiet. Real, fragile quiet. And for two people who were never meant to survive this long, that was a kind of miracle.